The view from the top of the class. Jude's POV. The problem with Leo Vance wasn't that he was a jock. It was that he was a smart jock. It made him a credible threat. And I didn't handle threats well, I neutralized them. I watched him from across the library, leaning back in my chair with a pen pressed to my lips. He was struggling with the advanced calculus set. I could tell by the way his eyebrows knit together, that tiny, stupidly handsome furrow that made every girl and half the guys in this school melt. He looked up and caught me staring. I didn't look away, I didn't even blink. I just raised a single eyebrow and mouthed. Integrating by parts, Leo, try it sometime. The red that crawled up his neck was my favorite color. The confrontation. Later in the equipment room, the air thick with the smell of floor wax and old rubber, I had him right where I wanted him. He thought he was the one cornering me. He thought his size gave him the upper hand. You've been pushing me for 3 years. Jude, Leo growled, stepping into my personal bubble. He put a hand on the wall next to my head. What is it? Do you want to be me? Or do you just want to ruin me? I leaned back against the cold brick. Tilting my head to the side, I let my eyes wander slowly down his chest and back up to his face. I didn't look intimidated, I looked bored. Ruining you sounds like a full-time job. Leo, I said, my voice low and smooth. And I already have enough extracurriculars. But you're vibrating, are you going to hit me? Or are you just frustrated because I'm the only thing in this school you can't outrun? He snapped, he grabbed my waist, shoving me back harder against the wall. His heart was hammering against my chest. Taking charge. Most people would have trembled. I just smiled. It was the smile that usually preceded me winning a debate. Finally, I whispered. When he kissed me, it was clumsy, all teeth and desperate heat. I let him think he was in control for exactly 3 seconds before I reached up, threaded my fingers through his hair, and forced his head back. I took control of the rhythm, biting his lip until he gasped, tasting the salt of his skin. He tried to pin my hands, but I used the leverage to pull him closer, my legs wrapping around his waist. I could feel him shaking. It's a common misconception that being the bottom means being passive. In this room, Leo was the muscle, but I was the architect. Down, I commanded, nodding toward the stack of gym mats. Jude. I didn't ask for your name, Leo. I gave you an instruction. The look of pure, unadulterated shock on his face was better than any trophy I'd ever won. He followed the command. The dynamic. As we tangled together, I relished the way I could make him lose his mind with just a word. He was stronger, sure, but he was reacting to me. Every groan he let out, every time his grip tightened on my hips. It was a data point. I was calculating his breaking point in real time. You're a nightmare, Leo gasped. His forehead pressed against mine, his eyes blown wide and dark. I'm your favorite nightmare. I corrected, dragging my nails lightly down his back. Now stop talking and show me if that swim team stamina is actually good for something. I watched him crumble under my gaze. I wasn't being taken, I was allowing him entry. There's a power in that, in being the one who opens the door and decides exactly how far the guest gets to go. When it was over, I was the one who stood up first. I fixed my hair in the reflection of a trophy case, feeling the ache in my limbs and the smug satisfaction in my chest. Leo was still sitting on the mats, looking like he'd been hit by a freight train. Don't look so tragic, Leo, I said, tossing him his shirt. You actually did quite well. Quite well, he huffed, a bit of his old spark returning. I'm pretty sure I just saw God. That wasn't God, I said, slinging my backpack over one shoulder and heading for the door. That was just me. See you in physics tomorrow. Don't be late, we're starting thermodynamics. I didn't look back, but I knew he was watching me walk away. I could feel his gaze on my back like a brand. I had one again the next morning. The fluorescent lights of the AP Physics lab felt unnecessarily bright. I sat at our shared lab bench, my spine perfectly straight, tapping a pencil against my notebook in a steady, rhythmic cadence. I felt the shift in the air before I heard him. The heavy thud of a sports bag. The scent of chlorine and expensive laundry detergent. Leo had arrived. "Move your bag, Vance," I said without looking up. "You're encroaching on my workspace, again." Leo didn't move. Usually he'd have a snappy comeback about how the table was communal property. Instead, there was a heavy, loaded silence. I finally tilted my head up. He looked. Wrecked, there were dark circles under his eyes. And his tie was slightly crooked, my handiwork, no doubt. "Jude," he whispered, his voice scratchy. "That's my name, don't wear it out." I leaned in, lowering my voice so the students at the next table couldn't hear. "And fix your collar. You're practically advertising that you spent your evening on a wrestling mat." He flushed a deep, satisfying crimson and fumbled with his shirt. Watching him lose his cool was better than caffeine, the experiment. Mr. Henderson stood at the front. "Today we're measuring the coefficient of friction. Pair up with your assigned lab partners." Leo sat down heavily. We had to slide a weighted wooden block across a surface and measure the force required to move it. "Friction," Leo muttered, grabbing the spring scale. "Appropriate." "Is it?" I reached over, my fingers intentionally brushing against his as I took the scale from him. He flinched like I'd shocked him. "I thought we'd moved past static friction." "Leo, we're well into kinetic territory now. You're doing this on purpose." He hissed, leaning closer. "You're acting like nothing happened." "Nothing did happen that wasn't entirely within my control," I replied, adjusting the weights on the block. I looked him dead in the eye, my expression ice cold and mocking. "Did you think we were going to hold hands in the hallway? I have a reputation to maintain. And you have a swim meet to lose." Breaking point. The lab went on, every time we had to record a result. I made sure my knee knocked against his under the table. I made sure to whisper instructions in his ear, my breath hitting that sensitive spot just below his jaw that I'd discovered last night. I was winning, I was dominant, I was. Leo suddenly grabbed my wrist under the table. His grip wasn't aggressive, but it was firm. Grounding, he didn't look at me. He kept his eyes on his notebook, scribbling a formula. "You're shaking, Jude," he said, his voice a low, private rumble that didn't reach anyone else. I looked down. My hand, the one he was holding, was indeed trembling just a fraction. The adrenaline of the game was backfiring. I wasn't as unaffected as I was pretending to be. "I'm not," I lied. "You are." He slowly interlaced his fingers with mine, hiding our joined hands beneath the mahogany lip of the lab bench. He squeezed. "You can play the genius all you want, but I felt how you breathed last night. I know you're not this cold." The new term. I tried to pull away, but he held fast. I felt a surge of heat that had nothing to do with the lab's heating system. My pulse was a frantic beat in my throat. I hated that he had noticed. I hated even more that I liked the feeling of his hand anchoring me. "Let go," I whispered, though there was no bite in it. "Make me," he countered. He turned his head then, a small, knowing smirk playing on his lips. It was the first time he'd looked confident all morning. "You like giving orders, Jude. Give me one, tell me to let go and mean it." I opened my mouth, but the words died there. The power dynamic was shifting again, oscillating like a pendulum. I realized then that while I might be the one in charge in the bedroom, Leo was the only person who actually saw through the armor I wore in the halls. I didn't tell him to let go. Instead, I used my free hand to write the final calculation in my notebook with shaky, elegant script. "We're off by 2 decimal points," I said, my voice finally regaining its edge. "Fix it, Vance, and don't think this means you're getting my notes for the midterms." Leo chuckled, a warm, genuine sound that made my chest tighten. He didn't let go of my hand for the rest of the period. My house was a temple of order. Books alphabetized, desk organized by project, and a strictly enforced no distractions policy. Then Leo Vance walked in, smelling like a rainy Tuesday and carrying a pizza box that definitely wasn't on the diet plan I'd set for finals week. "Put that on the coaster, Leo." "Not the mahogany," I snapped, pointing toward the coffee table. He didn't listen. He dropped his bag, set the pizza down on my pristine desk right next to my laptop, and turned to look at me. He looked too big for my room. The ceilings felt lower with him in here. "You're late," I added, crossing my arms. "I had extra laps," he said, stepping into my space. He didn't stop until his chest was brushing my sweater. He looked down at me, his eyes searching mine. "Are we going to pretend we're here to study the Renaissance? Or are you going to stop being a brat for 5 minutes?" The study break. "I am not a brat," I hissed, though the way my heart jumped told a different story. "I am the only reason you're passing European history." "Right, my hero." Leo reached out, his thumb catching my chin and tilting my head back. "You've been avoiding me in the halls all day. You wouldn't even look at me during lunch." I tried to keep my expression flat, but it was getting harder. I was busy. "Some of us actually value our rankings." "Liar," he whispered. He moved his hand from my chin to the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in the hair at the nape. It was a possessive, heavy weight. "You were scared because for the first time in your life, you aren't the only one holding the cards." I felt that familiar spark of defiance. I grabbed the front of his hoodie, bunching the fabric in my fists. "I am always holding the cards, Leo. I just haven't decided if I want to play this hand yet." "Then play it," he challenged. "The power play." I didn't wait. I shoved him backward. Aiming for my bed, he went willingly, his back hitting the mattress with a heavy thud. Before he could sit up, I was over him, straddling his lap, my knees pinning his thighs. I leaned down, my lips an inch from his. "You think you know me. You think because I let you touch me under a desk that you figured me out." I reached out and grabbed his wrists, pinning them to the pillows above his head. He was twice as strong as me. He could have broken my grip in a second. But he didn't. He let me hold him there, his breath hitching as he looked up at me with something that looked suspiciously like worship. "Show me then," Leo gasped. "Show me what I don't know." "I'm the one who decides when we start," I said, my voice dropping to a silk-thin thread. I let one hand go of his wrist to trace the line of his throat, feeling his pulse jump under my touch. "I'm the one who decides when we stop. And right now, we aren't stopping for a long time." The surrender. The rivalry didn't disappear, it just transformed. Every kiss was a conquest, every touch a demand. Leo was a physical force, but he moved exactly how I wanted him to. When I bit his shoulder, he groaned my name like it was a prayer. When I told him to stay still, he froze. There was something intoxicating about it, the star athlete. The school's golden boy, completely undone by me. He wasn't just letting me win. He was finding his own thrill in the way I took charge. "Jude," he choked out, his eyes squeezed shut as my hands moved over him. "Please." "Please what, Leo? Use your words. Be specific." I leaned down, whispering against his ear. "I thought you were the captain. Shouldn't you be giving the orders?" "Not with you," he panted, his head tossing back against the pillow. "Never with you." The quiet after. An hour later, the room was silent except for the hum of my desk lamp and the sound of our breathing. Leo was sprawled across the bed, half covered by my duvet, looking utterly spent. I was sitting up, leaning against the headboard, calmly smoothing my hair back into place. I looked down at him. He looked soft. It was a side of him the rest of the school never saw. "You're staring," Leo murmured, his eyes still closed. "I'm observing," I corrected. "There's a difference." He reached out, his hand finding mine and pulling it toward his face. He kissed my knuckles, his eyes opening just enough to catch mine. "You're terrifying, you know that." "So I've been told." I let a small, genuine smile slip. "Now get up. We still have 3 chapters of the French Revolution to cover. And I refuse to let my lab partner fail because he's too distracted by his own feelings." Leo laughed, pulling me back down onto the bed instead. 5 more minutes, then I'll be your star pupil." 10, I conceded, settling into his side. "But if you get a B on the quiz, I'm never doing that again." "Liar," he said again, and this time he was right. The winter gala was a sea of cheap sequins, rented tuxedos, and the suffocating scent of gardenia corsages. As the organizers, we were expected to be the faces of the event. I stood by the punch bowl, my suit tailored to a lethal edge. Checking my watch, I had spent the last 2 hours being Jude the perfectionist, directing the caterers. fixing the lighting and snubbing anyone who dared to suggest the playlist needed more pop. Then Leo walked in. He was in a midnight blue velvet blazer that made him look like a god. Every head in the gym turned. He looked for me immediately, his eyes cutting through the crowd until they landed on mine. He didn't smirk, he just looked at me with a heavy, weighted intensity that made my skin prickle. The public face. He walked over, stopping just close enough that our sleeves brushed. The decorations look good, Jude. You outdid yourself. I always do, I said, my voice crisp. Your tie is straight for once. Who helped you? Your mother. He leaned in, his voice dropping to that private, dangerous frequency, actually. I kept thinking about how you'd look at me if I messed it up. I didn't want to give you the satisfaction of fixing it in public. I felt a rush of heat. Smart move. Vance, you might actually be learning. We stood there for a moment, the two most powerful boys in school, radiating a cold, competitive energy that kept everyone else at a distance. To the rest of the world, we were still the rivals we had always been. They didn't see the way my pinky finger hooked into the loop of his blazer behind his back, hidden from the crowd. The secret escape. Halfway through the night, the slow song started, a cliché ballad that made me want to roll my eyes. Leo caught my gaze. He didn't ask. He just tilted his head toward the side exit leading to the rooftop garden. I waited 30 seconds before following. The air outside was biting, a sharp contrast to the humid gym. Leo was leaning against the stone railing, looking out over the football field. When I stepped out, he turned, his expression softening into something so vulnerable it almost hurt to look at. I'm tired of the act, he said. It's not an act, I replied, walking toward him. I still want to beat you for valedictorian. I still think your taste in music is atrocious. And I still think you're an arrogant jock. He laughed, reaching out to pull me into the space between his body and the railing. And I still think you're the most frustrating, bossy, brilliant person I've ever met. The conclusion, the final score. I let him wrap his arms around me, but I kept my hands on his chest, holding him exactly where I wanted him. I looked up at him, the moonlight catching the sharp lines of his face. You realize that if we do this, if we're this, you don't get to win. I whispered, I don't lose, Leo. Not to you, not to anyone. Leo leaned down, his forehead resting against mine. Jude, I realized weeks ago that losing to you is the best thing that ever happened to me. I hummed a small, triumphant sound. I reached up, grabbing his lapels and pulling him down into a kiss that tasted like cold air and absolute victory. This wasn't the frantic heat of the equipment room. It was a slow, deliberate claim. I was the one who broke the kiss. I stepped back, my eyes flashing with that familiar, predatory spark. Good answer, I said. Now let's go back in. We have 10 minutes before the king and queen announcement, and I intend to be standing center stage when they realize I've rewritten the script. Leo grinned, shaking his head as he followed me back toward the door. He was the star athlete, the popular jock, and the boy everyone wanted, but as he reached out to open the door for me, his eyes never left mine, waiting for my lead. The rivalry wasn't over, it had just moved to a higher league, one where I was the coach, the captain and the trophy all at once. And looking at the way Leo looked at me, I knew he wouldn't have it any other way.